Boker Tov, everybody. So we are holding on Daf Vav Amud Bet. So the truth is, we still have one more week of Aseh Dochelot Aseh, another like Daf and a little bit of Aseh Dochelot Aseh. These are not the easiest sugyot in Shas. So we are still where we're holding right now. We found, we started on Daf Gimel Amud Bet on the bottom. We asked the question, how do we know Aseh is Dochelot Aseh? So we found Mekorot, either Tzemer or Pishtim is extra. We could do Smuchim or Shadnez. The word Shadnez is extra. We could do Smuchim. We said, okay, fine, great. We have a Makor that Aseh is Dochelot Aseh. Great. Now what about Aseh Dochelot Aseh that has Karet? Can an Aseh override a Lot Aseh of Karet? You have a mitzvah Aseh to do something, Lot Aseh that has Karet. The Gemara tried to give a few limudim. We tried to learn from Shabbat, didn't work out. So now we tried to learn from Mora Mikdash, didn't work out. So we're still in search of a source that an Aseh would be Doche, a Lot Aseh that has Karet. So we're holding on Daf Vav Amud Bet. We are by where it says Ella. So the first word on the line is Leolam, and then right afterwards it says Ella. Okay, everyone has it. It's maybe like 8-10 lines down from the top. Yeah, okay. So it says the Gemara, Ella, Salka da'atach amina teiti mehavara. I would have thought to learn from Havara. Okay, so a little bit of background information. How many melachot do we have on Shabbat? 39. There's 39 melachot on Shabbat. How many of them are mentioned in the Torah? We learn them all from the Mishkan, yeah. So we learn from it says Lo Taseh Kol Melacha, and we learn from the Mishkan all of the melachot. There's one melacha that it specifically mentions. It says Lo Tivaru Esh Bechol Moshvotechem B'Yom HaShabbat. It says don't do Havara. So we're going to learn in the Gemara, why is that a separate pasuk? Machloket Tanaim. So Titana the Be Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael and his Ben Midrash, they taught the following braita. It says Lo Tivaru Esh Bechol Moshvotechem. The pasuk says you can't do Havara. You can't make a fire or transfer a fire. Bechol Moshvotechem B'Yom HaShabbat. So Ma Talmud Lomar. What is the...
What do you mean Bechol Moshvotechem?
Good, that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
We're gonna... The Gemara is going to take a few minutes to get there, but it's a process to get to that word, but that's exactly the word we're going to talk about. So Ma Talmud Lomar. What's with this pasuk to begin with? Why do we even need the pasuk? We already know, the first question is, we already know all of the melachot. What's with this pasuk? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? We already know that question. We already know the answer to that. Ma Talmud Lomar, you're asking me what the purpose of this pasuk is? Ile Rabbi Yossi lelav, ile Rabbi Natan lechalek. Okay, so let's just take a minute to explain this. So we learn from the pasuk, it says, Lo ta'aseh kol melacha, you can't do any melacha. We learn all 39 melachot. Havara is included in those 39 melachot. Havara is again making a fire or transferring a fire. So that's included in the 39 melachot. So why do we have a special pasuk here of Lo Tivaru Esh Bechol Moshvotechem B'Yom HaShabbat? Why do we need a pasuk singling out Havara? So we have a machloket, Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Natan. Rabbi Yossi says Havara lelav yatzta. Havara was excluded and it has its own pasuk to tell me that it's different than the other melachot. All the other melachot we learn is karet. Havara, there's no karet. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. There's no karet for Havara. It's only a lav. So if a person cooks on Shabbat, according to Rabbi Yossi, karet. If a person does shchita on Shabbat, karet. If a person writes on Shabbat, karet. If a person does Havara, no karet. Just a lav. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbi Natan says no. Havara lechalek yatzta. What does that mean? That if a person does Havara, Basically, we learn from Havara. I would have had a Hava, I would have maybe thought that Lo ta'aseh kol melacha means that you can't do all of the melachot. Meaning a person would not be chayav mita unless he does all of the melachot. Meaning if a person let's say did shchita, and he wrote, but he didn't cook, or he did all the other malachot, he just didn't cook, so I would think that a person's not chayav mita, because the pasuk says lo ta'aseh kol melacha. I might think that he has to do every single one. So Rabbi Natan says, Havara lechalek yatzta. That means it's coming to be mechalek, to show that no, each malacha is its own individual malacha. Just like Havara is singled out as its own malacha, and a person is over for just doing Havara, so too any other malacha. Comes out, bottom line, machloket between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Natan is if a person does Havara, according to Rabbi Yossi, lav. According to Rabbi Natan, karet. That's machloket.
What's the svara behind saying that Havara would be different than any other malacha, just based on the pasuk?
Because it's singled out by the pasuk, so Rabbi Yossi learns that means that it's being taken out of the general category of the rest of the melachot, and therefore Rabbi Yossi learns that it's lelav yatzta, that there's no karet for Havara on Shabbat. So the Gemara says we have a braita that discusses this exactly. The Tanya, Havara lelav yatzta, divrei Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Natan omer lechalek. That Rabbi Yossi says the reason we have a special pasuk for Havara is to teach me that it's different from the other melachot of Shabbat, and it's not karet. The person just gets a lav. And Rabbi Natan holds that lechalek yatzta, that the fact that Havara gets its own pasuk is to show me that just like Havara, a person is over by doing that one melacha. He doesn't have to do all the melachot to be chayav. So too, each individual malacha is its own malacha, and a person is chayav for just doing that one. And when we say lo ta'aseh kol malacha, it doesn't mean that a person has to do all the malachot to be chayav. It means any individual malacha, just like Havara is singled out. So that's the machloket. So the question is, we started with this braita. We said, what's the deal with this pasuk? Lo tivaru esh b'chol moshevotechem b'yom haShabbat. The Gemara said, what are you talking about? We already know what the deal is with that pasuk. We have machloket, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Natan. So v'amar Rava, tana moshavot kakashele. So Rava comes and says, no, that original braita that we said, what's with this pasuk? Lo tivaru esh b'chol moshevotechem b'yom haShabbat. The question is with the word moshevotechem. Moshavot. What is the deal with that word? Now Gemara is going to explain the question. Moshavot ma Talmud lomar. What's the purpose of saying moshavotechem? Michti. Let's take a look over here. Shabbat chovat hagufi. Shabbat is not a chiyuv on the land, it's a chiyuv on the individual. It doesn't matter where he lives. It's not the only mitzvot that have to do with moshavotechem, with where you live, are mitzvot hatuluyot ba'aretz, like Shemitah and Yovel and Trumot and Masrot, mitzvot that have to do with the produce of the land. This Shabbat has absolutely zero to do with the produce of the land. It has to do with the individual. The individual has to refrain from melacha. So Shabbat is a chovat haguf. That means it's something that it's a chiyuv and an isur on the individual. It has nothing to do with the land. V'chovat haguf noheget bein ba'aretz bein b'chutz la'aretz. Being that it's a chovat haguf, it's a chiyuv on the individual, so that is applicable whether he's living in Eretz Yisrael, whether he's not. Generally, moshavotechem would mean in Eretz Yisrael, but over here it cannot mean that, because we're talking about Shabbat. We can't say, Havara on Shabbat only applies in Eretz Yisrael. It's a chiyuv on the person who does it. It doesn't matter where he is. So therefore, Moshavot dekatav rachamana b'Shabbat lamali. So the question is, what's with this word Moshavot? This is exactly your question, right? So now we've clarified. We started off with this Braita. The Braita said, what's the deal with this pasuk? The pasuk says, Lo tivaru esh b'chol moshvotechem b'yom HaShabbat. What's the deal with this pasuk? Now we're clarifying. The question is really, what's the deal with the word moshavot? Meaning, we know why we need the Torah to repeat the isur of havara. Either to tell me that it's not karet, like Rabbi Yossi, or to tell me, like Rabbi Natan, that it's each malacha you're over by itself. But what's with the word moshavot? So moshavot kadav rachmana b'shabbat lamali. So mishum Rabbi Yishmael amar tamid echad. A student said in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, lefi shneimar v'chi yeh beish chet mishpat mavet vehumat. So the pasuk says that if somebody did something that is chayav mita vehumat, he has to be killed. Meaning there's a chiyuv of Beit Din to administer death penalty. So question is that chiyuv of Beit Din to administer a death penalty, does that doche Shabbat or not? Let's say someone did something, he was sentenced, and he's chayav mita. Can we give the chiyuv mita on Shabbat or not? Is the chiyuv
done din on Shabbos anyways?
Okay, let's say the din was before Shabbat, and now it's Shabbat coming into Shabbat, whatever. However the case came up. The question is, can they? This is the time that he's available. This is the time that it's possible to do it. So, the question is it doche Shabbat? So shomea ani ben bechol ben b'Shabbat. Just from the reading of the pasuk, it says, right? He's chayav mita vehumat. He's killed. So it sounds like whenever you do it, even on Shabbat. Umani mikayem mechalele hamot yumat. But I have another pasuk that says mechalele hamot yumat. Someone who's mechalel Shabbat is chayav mita. So b'shar melachot chutz mi mitat beit din. That pasuk you'll have to say is talking about not mitat beit din. Meaning we have one pasuk that says mitat beit din. Beit din has a chiyuv to put someone to death. We have another pasuk that's a mitzvah raseh. We have another pasuk that says if a person violates Shabbat, he's chayav mita. So lo taseh. So you have an aseh to put the person to death. Lo taseh of chilul Shabbat. So the Braita is gonna have a little bit of a back and forth here. First suggestion is, well, I might think that the chiyuv of Beit Din killing someone is doche Shabbat. What about the pasuk that says mechalele hamot yumat? Whoever's mechalel Shabbat is mot yumat. That's not talking about when Beit Din has to kill somebody. Or now the Braita flips the script and says, eno ela afilu mitat Beit Din. Maybe the pasuk that says mechalele hamot yumat, that's referring even to mitat Beit Din, when Beit Din puts someone to death. Umani mikayem vehumat. Now what about the pasuk that says Beit Din has a chiyuv to kill? That's bechol v'lo b'Shabbat. That's talking about weekday. Meaning, we could flip around the psukim. We have one pasuk that says Beit Din has a chiyuv to put someone to death. So we could say, that pasuk is talking about every day of the week. And the pasuk that says you cannot violate Shabbat, that's not talking about mitat Beit Din. Or we could say, no. The pasuk that says that mechaleh amot yumat, violating Shabbat, is chiyuv mita, that's even mitat Beit Din. You can't do on Shabbat. How do I establish the pasuk that says that Beit Din has a chiyuv to kill someone, vehumat? So no, that pasuk is talking about on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not Shabbat. Or the Gemara goes back again. This is very important. The Gemara has one suggestion, then flips back, now flips back again. Or maybe it's even on Shabbat. So the Gemara suggested maybe Beit Din killing is chiyuv mitat Beit Din is override Shabbat, or maybe it doesn't override Shabbat, or maybe it does override Shabbat. So this back and forth is very important. The Gemara is going to go through the steps. I don't think we're going to get to it today. It's in the next Amud. The Gemara is going to go through the steps. So it's important to remember of what's changing, what the Havamina is, what's changing. But we see from the Braita that we have First, we're assuming that it would be doche Shabbat. Then we're assuming, no, Beit Din punishing would not be doche Shabbat. Then we're going back and saying, no, maybe it's even on Shabbat. So it's back, forth, back. So Talmud Lomar, at the end of the day, the Gemara says when we have a pasuk, it says Lo tivaru esh bechol moshevotechem. The pasuk says you cannot light fire, Lo tivaru esh bechol moshevotechem. So what is that word moshevotechem teaching me? So there's a different place also that it says moshevotechem. Ulhalan hu omer, in a different place it says V'hayu ele lachem lechukat mishpat ledorotechem bechol moshevotechem. So this pasuk, in the other pasuk, moshevotechem, is referring to places where Beit Din convene. So ma moshavot ha'amurim lehalan bebeit din, just like in the other pasuk when it says moshavot, it's referring to Beit Din, it's referring to places where Beit Din convenes. So af moshavot ha'amurim kan bebeit din. So too the moshavot that it says in the pasuk of lo tivaru esh bechol moshavotechem, it means moshav Beit Din. Lo tivaru esh means even when it comes to a moshav Beit Din, that Beit Din is administering a punishment, but not on Shabbat. V'amar rachamana lo tivaru. So from here we have a special limud. That's the braita.
Everything has changed.
This is the braita. Okay, Arkan is the Braita. So what do we learn from the Braita? That we have a special limud that Beit Din does not put somebody to death on Shabbat. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says Lo tiva'aru esh b'chol moshvotechem b'yom HaShabbat. And b'chol moshvotechem means moshav Beit Din, where Beit Din is convening and giving administering a penalty, but not on Shabbat.
How do you compare moshvotechem to moshav Beit Din?
Because we have a different pasuk. This pasuk that says that on the second line before it gets wide, it says V'hayu ele lachem lechukat mishpat ledorotechem bechol moshvotechem. And that pasuk moshvotechem is referring to Beit Din. So the Gemara says once we have another place that moshavot is referring to Beit Din, also over here moshavot is referring to Beit Din, and the pasuk is telling me lo tivaru, that there's an isur of Beit Din to kill on Shabbat, to administer a death penalty on Shabbat, to do sreifa on Shabbat, basically. Lo tivaru esh b'chol moshvotechem b'yom HaShabbat, they cannot do sreifa on Shabbat. So now, we want to bring a proof from here that aseh is going to be doche, lo ta'aseh, that has karet. That's the agenda here, right? So how are we going to do that? So we have an aseh of mitat Beit Din. We need a special limud to teach me that it's not doche Shabbat. That means if not for this special limud, I would have thought that the mitzvah aseh would be doche Shabbat, which is a lo ta'aseh. Now, this takes us back to the machloket we had before. Is making a fire on Shabbat karet or not? If you hold like Rabbi Yossi, making a fire on Shabbat is not karet, because we said havara lelav yatzta. So if that's the case, you would have no proof from here that aseh would be doche lo ta'aseh that has karet. Right? Everybody follow that?
I follow that, but everything that changed, everything was in our mind. Everything in our mind is bechol moshvotechem, that means in your house.
No, so the Gemara is saying that obviously can't be true. Bechol moshvotechem cannot mean in your house or in Eretz Yisrael. So what does moshvotechem mean? So the Gemara explained moshvotechem means even in a moshav Beit Din, even in where Beit Din is convening.
Even.
Yeah. That's the chidush of moshvotechem is coming to show me not that it only applies in your land. It's coming to teach me that even in Beit Din, yes. But either way, so we have from this pasuk a limud, a special limud to teach me that the Beit Din has a chiyuv to kill somebody, and it's not doche Shabbat. Okay, that's what we learned from this pasuk. So, right, b'chol moshvotechem lo tivaru esh b'chol moshvotechem b'yom HaShabbat means even mitat Beit Din is not doche Shabbat. So, let's read it inside the Gemara. So, My love, Rabbi Natan. Isn't this a going according to the opinion of Rabbi Natan? Now remember, what was the machloket Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Natan? Why do we need a special pasuk by Havara? Why do we even need the pasuk to begin with? So Rabbi Yossi said, Havara lelav yatzta. What does that mean? That if someone does Havara on Shabbat, someone makes a fire on Shabbat, is it karet or no? According to Rabbi Yossi? According to Rabbi Yossi, it's not karet. Because Rabbi Yossi learned this special pasuk of Lo tivaru esh havara lelav yatzta. It's coming to tell me that it's different from the other melachot.
It's just a plain law.
It downgrades it. Yeah. According to Rabbi Natan, it doesn't downgrade it. So the Gemara is saying, my love, Rabbi Natan. Don't we say that this is going with according to the opinion of Rabbi Natan, that Havara will still be karet. Damar lechalek yatzta. That Rabbi Natan said that the reason Havara is taken out of the rest of the melachot, it's coming to show me that each melacha gets its own chiyuv karet. V'ta'ama dekatav rachamana lo teva'aru. And the whole reason that we know that Beit Din cannot put someone to death on Shabbat is because the pasuk says lo teva'aru, don't do it. That means halav hachi. If I would not have had a pasuk to tell me this, dachi, I would say that the aseh of mitat Beit Din overrides the karet of making a fire on Shabbat. So Beit Din would administer the punishment of sreifa on Shabbat. Right? One of the punishments of Beit Din is sreifa. They basically boil lead and they pour it in the person's throat. So I would think that overrides Shabbat. Right? Aseh of mitat Beit Din overrides karet of Shabbat. So here's our source. Our source of aseh doche lo ta'aseh that has karet is from here, from the fact that we need a special teaching to tell me that chiyuv of Beit Din to kill does not override Shabbat. That means that elsewhere I would learn that a chiyuv, a mitzvah aseh, does override even an isur karet. So the Gemara says that only works if you hold it's Rabbi Natan. But I'm going to tell you it's not Rabbi Natan. Lo, Rabbi Yossi. Our Mishnah our Braita is going according to Rabbi Yossi, that it's not that it's only a lav, that Havara is only a lav, and it's not karet. So you have no proof that it would be doche karet. So the Gemara says, V'tiavi nami Rabbi Yossi. Let it be Rabbi Yossi. It's not going to make a difference. Emor da'ama Rabbi Yossi Havara lelav yatzta Havara gredita. That which Rabbi Yossi says Havara is only a lav and there's no karet. That's only by regular Havara. But Havara de Beit Din bishul petilahu. But the Havara of Beit Din also really includes bishul, meaning when Beit Din is preparing to do sreifa, it includes the malacha of bishul. They're cooking, which is not Which is not that's for sure gonna be karet. That's not excluded in the pasuk of Havara. It's a different malacha. So V'amar Rav Sheshet Mali bishul pitila, Mali bishul samanim. What do I care? Bishul is bishul. It doesn't matter if you're cooking the samanim, which is what was cooked for the Mishkan. They cooked the herbs and the dyes that they used to dye different materials. That's the cooking that they did in the Mishkan. Rav Sheshet taught it doesn't make a difference if he's cooking the samanim or if he's cooking a ptilat, a wick of to burn the lead. So we here have this is our potential proof for aseh docha lo ta'aseh sheyesh bo karet. What's our potential proof? So we have a special limud that we have a mitzvah aseh of mitat Beit Din, lo ta'aseh of karet of Shabbat, either bishul or havara, but either way you slice it, we're gonna come out that it's a karet. So chiyuv of mitat Beit Din does not override the karet of Shabbat. We have a special limud for that. Why do we need a special limud for that? Obviously, that means that in general it would override. Just this is the exception. We have a limud to show me this is the exception. But in general, it would override. The chiyuv mitad beit din would override the aseh of Shabbat, the lo ta'aseh of Shabbat, if not for this pasuk. So that's what we want to say is the source of aseh docha lo ta'aseh sheish bo karet. We'll do a couple more lines. So the Gemara responds to this and says, no, you don't have a makor for here. Amar Rav Simi bar Ashi, Haitana lo mishum da'at ta'aseh v'dachi lo ta'aseh, ela mishum demaiti mikal v'chomer. This Tana, it's not the Havamina, is not because I would assume asev is docha lo ta'aseh of karet, and therefore I need a pasuk. Over here it's a little bit different. I would have learned from a kal v'chomer that Beit Din should kill on Shabbat, not because aseh is docha lo ta'aseh. So I would have never had a havamina. I would have never thought aseh would violate lo ta'aseh of karet. The reason I would have thought that Beit Din should administer their punishment on Shabbat is not because, you have an aseh and that violates lo ta'aseh of karet of Shabbat. That's not what I would have thought. The reason I would have thought Beit Din would kill on Shabbat is because I have a kal v'chomer. What's the kal v'chomer? Achi kamar. Ma ani mekayem mechalelei amot yumat b'shar melachot chutz mimitat Beit Din. I would have thought that the pasuk of mechalelei amot yumat, that, right, we're plugging this back into the Braita, that the pasuk of mechalelei amot yumat is not referring to Beit Din, meaning chilul Shabbat is chayav mita. That's not referring to when Beit Din does it. Mita Beit Din dachi Shabbat. I would have thought that Beit Din administering a punishment would override Shabbat mikal v'chomer. What's the kal v'chomer? Uma avoda shehi chamura vedoche Shabbat. So avoda is doche Shabbat, right? Torah says bring this korban musaf. These things are doche Shabbat. Ritzicha doche ota. Beit Din punishing overrides that. Shneimar me'im mizbechi tikachenu lamut. If Beit Din has to punish kohen, Beit Din will take the kohen right out of doing the avodah and punish him. So you see that punishment of Beit Din overrides avodah. Right, Kohen is doing the avodah on Tuesday. Beit Din goes into the Beit HaMikdash, grabs him out, and chayav mita from avodah. So punishment of Beit Din overrides avodah, and avodah overrides Shabbat. So punishment of Beit Din should override Shabbat. That's what I would have thought. So Shabbat shenitchid mimnei avodah eino din shetehe ritzicha docheota. If Shabbat is overridden by avodah, so for sure mitat Beit Din, which overrides avodah, should override Shabbat. That's the kal v'chomer.
How we know that Beit Din could go to the Beit HaMikdash bring the Kohen out?
So we have a pasuk me'im mizbechi tikachenu lamut. That even when he's about to do the avodah, he's right next to the mizbeach. Tikachenu lamut. You take him to. Okay, so we're gonna stop here, and we'll Be'ezrat Hashem continue. It's kind of in the middle of a shakla v'tarya, but there's not really a good place to stop. It's a whole run on Amud. Okay, chalakim uvruchim.